Ahoy! The confusion around the coconuts in New World Aeternum continues, and we're seeing some tank nerfs at the same time, some that were postponed basically. So the first thing that you see here is a post that was originally posted on Twitter but was since changed. And that was a new patch with release notes here saying that they were going to change the coconuts. You can ignore the rest for now, we get to that in a bit. This part here says beta participants coconuts now functions like regular gold curse coconuts in that they can be used to upgrade gear to 725 as well as can be turned in for rewards. That is not the case at all, and that's why you're seeing a lot of confusion at the moment, because people have seen this post, people have seen the old version of the post, and then they changed it. And they made a statement about it, which says, apologies for the confusion, no changes will be made to the functionality of the beta participants coconut, which, as far as I understand it, also means we are going to get the additional normal gold curse coconuts still as planned, and this part was just a mistake that they corrected at some point and then forgot to fix in the patch notes. New World style, I guess. But yeah, if you're seeing a lot of conflicting information going around regarding these coconuts at the moment, then this is why. But let's also talk about the changes, even though they were already announced. There's at least one of them that I specifically want to say something more about. The wall effect, again, that was nerfed. Chromatic Ward perk reduced elemental base damage reduction from 25 to 13%. Still no explanation as to why they may have done that, because I really don't think that the wall is particularly strong to the degree that it would need this nerf. Again, I think this might be something war-related, where they could get more benefit out of it compared to other places, because really, you're not getting that much out of dodging there comparatively, because you're blocking most of the time if you're actually a point tank. But that is such a niche usage overall that I can't see how this would warrant this nerf. Maybe it's something mutation-related, but then people are not running it there. So again, I have no idea why they're doing this in particular and such a drastic nerf too, and I don't really understand the purpose of the wall going off of that. The next one is the one that I read before and was very confused about. Still confusing wording, but I think I understand it now. So, there is a backend functionality that reduces the attacker's block stamina damage dealt for 0.5 seconds after taking a hit. Previously, the value was a 25% reduction, but we changed that to be a 13% reduction. So, the reason why I didn't get this is because this first sentence can be read in two different ways. Basically, what they're probably saying is that not the attacker is the one taking a hit, but you are the one taking a hit. So, somebody attacks you, you take a hit, not they are taking a hit from you, the attacker hits you, you are taking a hit, and that reduces the stamina damage they deal for 0.5 seconds. What I always thought was happening with this mechanic, if this is the same mechanic, which I'm assuming it is based on what some people have said, that is likely what was originally described to us as a mechanic where if you block an attack, then the next hit you're taking deals less stamina damage. But I always understood this as you are the one who has reduced stamina damage taken, whereas based on how it's worded here, it's actually the stamina damage from the attacker that gets reduced. So you're basically blocking or taking a hit and then applying a debuff to the attacker that reduces their stamina damage. That would also mean that if multiple players attack you, the first hit from all of those players would always be the full damage, and then successive hits afterwards would deal less block stamina damage. That's how I understand it now. Still not 100% sure if that's correct, if this is actually the way it works, or if whoever wrote this has misunderstood it. Still confusing to me, but I think this is what they mean. I think this is how it works, and I am going to give you this information. You can make of that what you will, but I think that's the new functionality they're aiming for here, or rather, the nerf functionality. So it was already existing, and now it's going down from 25% to 13%, which should effectively mean that someone who's blocking a lot, who's taking a lot of hits, would take more stamina damage. I think that's the idea here. Additionally, they reduced the power of the Refreshing Ward perk on older named items that were at 625 gear score or lower. No surprise here, this perk just was very effective. You stacked Refreshing on the pieces and then just had some jewelry, for example, with Refreshing Ward, or a weapon with Refreshing Ward, sword. So that being nerfed to not really be as useful anymore makes sense. I'm surprised they're not just full-on disabling it in the first place. They also added a 1-second cooldown timer to the Tower Shield functionality on one with the shield passive for the Sword and Shield. This is being hit or blocking a hit will extend the duration of all buffs on himself by 5%, which is quite strong. And they fixed an issue where players were unable to craft Apex item at the Well of Fortune. Now, when this was originally posted, when these changes were originally announced and then delayed, there was some discussion surrounding if they should be done in the first place and why they're nerfing tanks so hard and so on. And I want to weigh in on that a little bit as someone who has played tank significant amounts of time in this game, but also has played against tanks a lot. I believe that tanking over time has gotten more and more effective and easier, because you've gotten more and more tools that will provide you with self-healing. Like, for example, Heart Runes was a very big one. You've got more perks that provide you with stamina. You've got many, many ways of getting higher survivability compared to when the game came out. And there wasn't really all too much tuning against that for the longest time. And the argument that tank players will always make is, well, you're not supposed to fight a tank, you're supposed to ignore a tank and fight other people, and then you'll be fine because they don't do enough damage, which for the most part is correct. There are some tank builds that actually can do relatively decent damage still, but they're not going to one-shot you at least. Or there's tank builds that can stick to you well enough to be consistently annoying as well. I think that's also worth keeping in mind. Now, there's a similar discussion and argument to be made for healers, where people are saying you shouldn't be able to kill a healer 1v1 with similar outcomes. This is something that is as old as New World, I guess. The problem with New World's current design is particularly the PvP is heavily designed around engaging with your opponent. For example, in 3v3s, yeah, you can ignore a player to an extent, but eventually you need to kill every player in a 3v3. So that's something where tanks can be relatively good. But then more importantly, in Outpost Rush, you have your control points that need to be captured, your capture points that need to be taken. And you can't ignore a tank there, because if you ignore the tank, he will just take the point and you are not doing anything about it. You can at best force a stalemate by sitting on the point with them, or you can hope that you get teammates that help you and eventually you can take the tank down. And that is not the case for most other roles, again, exception here being healers as well. Normally you are able to actually contest a point, take the trade, and depending on that, be successful in taking over the point by killing the enemy. And I think that is something that makes sense from a gameplay perspective. It's obviously up for discussion if you want the game to be designed that way or not, but I think from a fun perspective, it makes sense that you are able to trade into everyone. I say the same thing for healers as well. And yeah, the better player wins and gets the point. And tanks have so many means to stalemate at this point that I can see why they are doing specific targeted nerfs. Now, I don't think these nerfs in particular will help that much with that, because some of them are focused around larger groups anyways, which, again, is a thing where tanks are very strong now. And I think some people are also misunderstanding the whole tank discussion, because I've seen people say, well, if you're struggling with a tank, just kill the healer. The situation as of now is that there are various tank builds, there are YouTube videos about it, you can look it up, that are able to consistently fight 1vx and hold their own. Again, not likely killing anyone unless they make big mistakes, but also surviving for a ridiculously long time and sustaining throughout a situation where it doesn't seem really like it would be fair anymore. Again, this is something that comes down to player skill as well. There's many factors going into this. There's a lot of discussion that could be had about that. But I do think that with that in mind and with the design of New World currently, it is not entirely surprising that they are going after tanks a little bit. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see further adjustments to specific perks in the future, so that holding block and just refilling your health and stamina consistently isn't quite as rewarding. People are also saying that this is a major factor in PvE, but most of these changes I think will not affect PvE all that much, to be honest. Again, the wall's weird here, but everything else is kind of more PvP focused at least, and I think if you were able to tank in PvE before, that won't significantly change at this point. Just my 2 cents as someone who really likes tanking, but who also really likes dealing damage. So yeah, make of that what you will. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and clicking the bell. More Dune videos finally coming soon. And if you'd like to support me further, you can do so on Patreon. Thanks to all of my patrons who already do exactly that. And thank you for watching. Duke Sloth, out.